The Reserve Bank of Australia lifts rates, though it might be the last hike. Australia and China are set to resume annual dialogue, and artificial intelligence is getting friendlier. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It's Wednesday, the 8th of November 2023. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Adam. Absurd didn't win the Melbourne Cup. We predicted that yesterday because everything's a little bit absurd, but alas, didn't make it.
Fear and Greed tip, fail.
Fail. Exactly.
So, Sean, immediately after the show, we want everyone to stay listening for your chat with Jason Ireland and Sean Wiles. They are both partners at McGrath-Nichol Advisory, and they're great supporters of the Fear and Greed podcast.
Yeah, they sure are. McGrath-Nichol has just released its 11th working capital report. That's 11 years of it. Great background. What it does is show how healthy the listed sector is based on how kind of the different companies are managing money. There's some great insights in the report and, of course, in the interview as well. Well worth a listen.
Sean, the main story this morning, the Reserve Bank lifted the official cash rate by 25 basis points yesterday to 4.35%, with Governor Michelle Bullock warning that taming inflation is tougher than expected.
Yes, she sure did. Bullock said the decision to increase the cash rate to 4.35% from 4.1% was because progress on lowering inflation had been slower than earlier expected. She said any further hikes would depend on data and the evolving assessment of risk. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said the Reserve Bank's decision was in the interest of the fight against inflation. Which he noted was broader than just headline price pressures from higher oil prices. Of course, Chalmers has been very vocal in his desire that rates didn't increase. However, they did yesterday. Adding to the case for the latest rate rise was new RBA staff forecast showing inflation will be higher next year than first thought. The central bank expects inflation to fall to 3.5% by the end of next year compared to its previous forecast of 3.25% released a few months ago. The weight of this information since August suggests that the risk of inflation remaining higher for longer has increased, according to Michelle Bullock.
Sean, higher interest rates can affect everybody, but what does it mean for homeowners?
Yes, well, about $120 per month extra on a $750,000 home loan. That means the total increase since rates started rising back in May last year to nearly $2,000 per month. The big question, of course, is whether there will be any more rate rises. Possibly, according to economists. Ms. Bullock recognised the painful squeeze many households were feeling, but said the board ultimately judged an increase in interest rates was warranted to be more assured that inflation would return to target in a reasonable timeframe.
Sean, it was a public holiday in Victoria, but it was still a very busy day. How did local markets perform yesterday?
Well, the ASX 200 closed down 0.3% to 6,977 points. The major banks led the way lower, with Westpac down 2.7%. It had a pretty good run the day before, though, while ANZ and National Australia Bank both closed down 1%. The big miners did better, while the retailers were mixed. Tech stocks did well. WiseTech Global rose 2.6%, while REA was up 1.7%. In corporate news, Ingham's Chief Executive Andrew Reeves told shareholders yesterday that the cost environment is challenging for all businesses, with costs remaining elevated, mainly driven by feed and transport. Ingham said the fiscal year started positively. That's good news. And Air New Zealand is flagging a significant service schedule change, including pausing its Auckland to Hobart flights from April 5 next year as a result of the impacts related to maintenance of the Pratt & Whitney engines on its fleet, which could persist for up to 2 years. Bad news for Air New Zealand.
Sean, that covers Australia. What's happening in international markets?
Well, the Aussie dollar was trading around 2-month highs on Monday on the back of the US Fed's rhetoric suggesting rates won't rise in the world's biggest economy. But yesterday it pulled back. It's trading around 64.3 US cents. Not much change in oil or gold markets. Iron ore prices are on the way up again, hitting a 7-month high yesterday. That, of course, is great for big Australian miners, places like BHP, Fortescue Metals and Rio Tinto. A little bit of renewed confidence in China is the main reason for the strength in the price of the ore. Copper prices are also higher, the best level in a month. Copper is considered a litmus test for the global economy because it's used in so many applications. One commodity not doing as well is coal, with prices around 2.5-year lows. Now, it does depend on the type of coal you're talking about. Australia tends to mine high-quality coal. China mines lower-quality coal, and it has boosted coal production over the past couple of years, pushing prices lower.
We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Australia and China could resume an annual dialogue between leaders following Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and President Xi Jinping's meeting on Monday night.
China declared there was a new starting point in the relationship, one that was strained under the Morrison government, and Xi heralded Albanese's efforts to repair the relationship. He said China-Australia relations had embarked on the right path of improvement and development, and a healthy and stable relationship serves the common interests of the two countries. Now, 50 years ago, Labor's Gough Whitlam became the first Prime Minister to visit China. Xi referred back to that, saying, "When drinking water, we shouldn't forget who dug the well." In private talks after their opening remarks, Albanese raised several issues with Xi, ranging from concerns about China's territorial encroachment, its human rights abuses and trade. He also invited Xi to visit Australia. Xi raised with Albanese China's desire to enter the regional free trade pact. In response, Albanese said China had to lift its game in terms of adhering to a global rules-based order on trade before it would be accepted. The Prime Minister also sought assurances that China would lift its remaining trade sanctions on Australian wine and red meat exports.
Sean, the Biden administration is seeking a high-level delegation to Australia for a series of meetings this week to review the progress of the trilateral AUKUS defence technology partnership. That's according to US officials.
The US is sending representatives from the State Department, the White House's National Security Council staff, the Energy Department, which oversees the nuclear fuel to power submarines, and a smattering of Pentagon officers. Heading the delegation is Mara Karlan, the Acting Deputy Undersecretary of Defence for Policy. AUKUS, of course, provides for the sale of US nuclear-powered submarines and sharing of nuclear propulsion technology with Australia, as well as joint development of high-tech weaponry. As part of the multi-day deep dive across the AUKUS agreement, Karlan said the submarine executive group would meet to review progress on Pillar 1, the historic sale of nuclear-powered conventionally armed submarines to Australia. That's all according to Reuters.
Sean, have you ever been invited to the submarine executive group?
No, wouldn't it be great though, to go to this submarine executive group,
Yeah.
SEG, and just be able to tell your mates afterwards.
Yeah, have a good chat around a big map of the globe and talk strategy. What fun.
Absolutely.
Sean, the latest update on the Origin energy takeover bid by a North American consortium. Influential proxy advisor firm Institutional Shareholder Services has recommended a yes vote on the bid.
The $9.53 share bid, which values Origin at nearly $20 billion, has been rejected by Australian Super, which owns 15% of the company. Now, other fund managers have indicated they'll accept the bid when shareholders vote in just over a fortnight. Now, ISS, the Institutional Shareholder Services, have come out and recommended the bid. Origin's share price has just been creeping up a bit. It closed at $8.64 yesterday. Of course, that's still 90 cents or a little under 90 cents, 89 cents below the bid offer. But it's interesting that it is just creeping higher, Adam.
Isn't it? A fascinating story to watch as it develops. Sean, Malcolm Turnbull was talking yesterday about the Prime Minister's visit to China and other state affairs. Malcolm was quite entertaining.
Yes, he certainly was. The former Prime Minister says Labor winning government last year provided a suitable exit ramp for China to drop its failed economic coercion against Australia. China had already become unhappy with Australia's decision to ban Huawei from its 5G network in 2018, before it went completely over the top, according to Turnbull, after the then Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison called for an independent inquiry into the origins of COVID-19. Turnbull said Albanese can take credit for the change in relationship, but he's basically done nothing apart from win the election and not used belligerent language. Turnbull also described former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison's visit to Israel. He described those two as two guys with plenty of time. I think there's quite a slap in that.
Just a subtle one. Sean, the world's biggest gold company, Newmont, has finalised the purchase of Newcrest Mining and is now looking to shed some of its assets.
That means selling mines, and it's not clear whether any of the Newcrest mines are on the chopping block. 2 Australian mines acquired from Newcrest, Telfer and Havieron, are among several operations that Newmont could sell, according to analysts. Chief Executive Tom Palmer said the company will find $2 billion in cash via mine sales and divestments. Miners typically shed assets following mergers and acquisitions to bring in cash and keep their portfolios manageable. With the takeover of Newcrest, Newmont will operate 20 mines in 11 countries. Big company. The move boosts the company's gold output to an estimated 8.5 million ounces a year, while significantly increasing its exposure to copper.
Sean, moving to international news, the Palestinian death toll has now passed 10,000, while some 1,400 Israelis have died ahead of an expected push into Gaza City and potentially an even bloodier phase of the month-old war.
Troops are expected to enter Gaza City soon, Israeli media reported, and Palestinian militants who have had years to prepare are likely to fight street by street, launching ambushes from a vast network of tunnels. The military said it had struck 450 targets on Monday this week, and ground troops took over a Hamas compound. A one-way corridor for residents to flee south remains open. That's good news. That's for the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who remain in Gaza City and other parts of the north, according to the military. That's all from AFP. Now, some 1.5 million Palestinians, who are around 70% of Gaza's population, have fled their homes since the war began. Food, medicine, fuel and water are running low, and United Nations-run schools turned shelters are pretty much beyond capacity at this point.
Sean, turning to the USA, former US President Donald Trump defended his wealth and business, sparring with the judge overseeing his civil fraud trial and denouncing as a political witch hunt a lawsuit accusing him of dramatically inflating his net worth.
Trump's testimony about property valuations and financial statements was punctuated by personal jabs at a judge he said was biased against him, and at the state attorney general, whom he derided as a political hack. Trump proudly boasted of his real estate business. I quote, "I'm worth billions of dollars more than the financial statements," end quote. And then he disputed claims that he had deceived banks and insurers, according to Associated Press. Trump's testimony got off to a contentious start, with the judge admonishing him to keep his answers concise and reminding him that this is not a political rally. We don't have time to waste. Now, the judge at one point turned to Trump's attorney and said, "I beseech you to control him if you can. If you can't, I will. Good luck, attorney."
What theatre.
Yeah.
Sean, OpenAI is set to release a version of ChapGPT that accomplishes specific personal and professional tasks around the home or office.
With the new option, users will be able to create their own specialised versions of ChapGPT that can help teach maths to a child or explain the rules of a board game, according to Bloomberg. Most importantly, no coding is required. Good news for people like you and I, Adam, I dare say.
Oh, yes.
OpenAI also plans to introduce a store later this month where users can find tailored GPTs from other users and make money from their own, something akin to Apple's App Store. ChatGPT was released to the public a year ago this month. Roughly 100 million people now use ChatGPT. Quite incredible. More than 90% of Fortune 500 businesses are building tools on OpenAI's platform. That too is quite incredible.
Sean, as predicted, this is moving so fast. OpenAI is continuing to evolve and grow.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, quite incredible how fast AI is being adopted. Even if it's not being adopted, it's being piloted by many organisations.
Yeah, so true. Sean, up next is your Fear and Grade Daily interview with Jason Ireland and Sean Wiles, who are both partners at McGrath-Nicol Advisory, and they're great supporters of the Fear and Greed podcast.
Yeah, all about working capital, which is a great litmus test for how companies are performing. So well worth a listen, that one.
That's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your favourite podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam.
It's Wednesday, the 8th of November, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. We hope you have a great day.